Can you still see us?
No, they can't see us yet. I gotta flip some switches.
Behind the intake.
YouTube's coming up. It takes its sweet little time. Should be going now. All right. Yep, I think we're up on everything now.
All right, welcome everybody. We're just getting going here on all the platforms.
Yep, I think you're good on everything.
All right. Welcome to the 63rd live Q&A 034 Motorsport. This is a AMA style Ask Us Anything. Certainly anything automotive related, 034 Motorsport related. Sorry, I'm pulling up our question sheet here. Just not cooperating. Any questions about 034 Motorsport products and services? What's going on with the Wi-Fi in here?
I don't know.
It never works.
I'm on it on 3 devices.
Yeah, I don't know. So yes, please submit your questions. If I can see them, I will be happy to answer them.
Yeah, just turn off the Wi-Fi.
Oh, it finally came up.
There you
go. We have a no BS approach to answering questions and tackling topics. So we're happy to help with that.
Yep.
If you need anything cleared up, or you have any heated controversial topics that you've never heard anyone give a straight answer on, happy to help with all those things.
And of course, ETAs on things, which we always try, but we're working on a lot of stuff. So
the ETAs are tough.
They're tough. There's so many things that push and pull.
This weekend, somebody was taking me to task on some ETA I gave 6 months ago, and it's like, guys, you ask for ETAs, it means estimated time of arrival, and it's just an estimate. So anything could happen, anything could change.
Yeah, and I mean, we're juggling a lot of different projects, different teams, different efforts, and there's always hurdles every time you try and bring a project all the way through. So.
Well, and sometimes the same person is asking for ETAs on 2 separate things, and then you get one of them done, and then they get angry that the second one wasn't done. And it's like, you realize we got the one done for you, and because we were doing that, we couldn't do the other thing. So, there's just this whole space-time continuum thing. It's really in the way of progress. But, and then lastly, if you have any complaints or concerns or anything, please bring it up. We've been tackling more of those live on the air, and ultimately we'd like to solve whatever problem is out there.
Yeah, or at the very least give you some insight into why, what might be going on. There's usually a lot to the story that may not be visible.
Yeah, and we're not always gonna necessarily agree or go with the first impression. So like last week there was this thing about our tuning is aggressive.
Oh, what's safe versus aggressive tuning,
and all that stuff. And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing.
Yep.
So, all right, so let's get started. Someone is asking, will you be developing an intercooler for the B9 S4 S5? We are. We are currently in engineering development on that product. Currently, we offer Wagner units, which are very good quality. But with the additional hardware engineering resources that we've added to the company over the past year, we would like to come out with our own line of intercoolers. The first will be the Mark 7 GTI style intercooler, and we will have a tube and fin intercooler offering for that. Most of everything on the market is bar and plate. And we talked last week about the differences. But yeah, no ETA. Speaking of ETAs, but
yeah, we've got a lot of testing and revisions to go through at this point.
Yeah, but we've got something we're working on.
Some hardware in house though, I think. Last I checked.
Well, for the initial testing, the GTI.
Yeah.
Not B9 yet.
No.
S5 B8.5. What are the recommended things to do before getting a tune, ECU, TCU, maintenance, and mods? I mean, as far as mods, it's up to you. It's a good idea to make the car handle better before you add more power.
Yeah, and just really make sure everything's up to, in good health.
Well, that's
drive
maintenance.
lines, yeah, the maintenance.
That's
side,
maintenance.
right.
Right. But on the mod side,
I mean, it could be like,
you don't need to do anything.
no, driveline inserts certainly help a lot.
But yeah, I mean,
mod-wise.
I would recommend doing, suspension, sway bars, inserts, like Nate says. S5, we don't have springs for the S5.
It's not specific, no.
Yeah. We are working on that, but yeah. Now, as far as maintenance goes, yeah, certainly you want the car to be in good maintenance, oil changes and fluids and filters and everything.
Yeah, and without knowing, mileage and history on it and stuff,
Yeah,
there's a lot of common, maintenance and upkeep items. If you have no idea if the thermostat's ever been replaced, that's one gotcha that almost everybody has to go through at some point in the vehicle's life. Beyond that, yeah, really depends on mileage and wear and tear that's on the vehicle.
yeah. I mean, you could do some logs and send them to us. We can review that. We offer that service if you email tuning@034motorsport.com. And I've considered it. What else? I mean, you can. I don't know how you can check the integrity of the intercoolers, but you could always take it apart and see if they're leaking or anything. And then you could take your cats out and try to inspect those.
Yeah, it's so much that
starts getting
kind of
pretty
tough. You gotta start digging in deep if you really want to know where you're at. We can try and help you out with logs and data, like Javad mentioned. You can see some of that sometimes. If you've got cylinder or bank imbalances, it can be from a couple of different things. If you've got a bunch of knock activity on a stock file. Usually there's a reason behind that, whether it's injectors, intercoolers, or blocked up catalysts.
Can you see injector issues in logs?
Sometimes, yeah, that's one of the things, and it's a little tricky to suss out if it's injectors or intercoolers, or if we're starting from an unknown history on the motor. It might require some more digging in to see if you're getting a bunch of knock for one reason or another, because leaking intercoolers will show up very similarly. You'll have weird knock activity, weird fuel trims, weird behavior. So yeah, usually you'll see coolant. You'll be losing coolant though. So
more and more we're seeing issues with injectors on these older
cars. And I think it's getting to be an age related and mileage related thing.
I mean, if you could do a carbon cleaning and change your injectors, that would be it.
Yep.
I would recommend that.
Yep.
But hardly anyone does. So, all right. On the B8 S4, is there a way to prevent the car from short shifting to second if the wheels spin? When launching, it always shifts early and first.
If you're getting wheel spin, that's almost impossible to properly, catch. Basically, the rate of acceleration gets to be so fast when it gets into a slip, then the transmission is just trying to keep up and keep you from crashing into the rev limiter. So that's why we have an adjustable launch control. You can adjust it both RPM and amount of load to the pedals, so it's going to be just a matter of getting that dialed in better.
So that's your recommendation, is
you just work on the launch, so you're not getting into a bunch of wheel spin. Because
wheel spin is just as problematic as shifting into second.
Yeah. So that's why we have a fully configurable launch system. You can change your RPM, change the amount of load you're leaving with. So there's a lot there to play with.
Yeah, hopefully that helps. I mean, what would be the alternative to not shifting to second?
It gets incredibly difficult for the transmission to. You typically will crash into rev limiters, and then it's usually even longer for the next gear change, as the TCU and ECU are sorting out rev matching from that point when you're bouncing off the rev limiter.
So I think people have a misunderstanding that you can just crash into the rev limiter and that won't cost you any time.
Right.
But that actually costs you a lot of time.
Right.
So, all right.
Yeah, just on that further, how many cars do you hear whack into the rev limiter for a while at a drag strip before shifting? That's
you
not
hear it,
but that's not going to be a
it.
fast run. Generally. It's not the way.
There is
to get down the track.
There's this technique or idea that I've come across where you launch hard and first, and you just bang off the rev limiter, and kind of let the rev limiter modulate the acceleration, and then as your wheel speed increases up to a certain level, you finally get to the top of first, and then you shift. But that's really slow.
And
I don't know if that's some Fast and the Furious thing people saw or
well,
what.
and in some platforms with some tire combos, maybe that works for them. But in this case, dude, just turn off Wi-Fi.
I did.
Shift on
Now
this
it's
one.
like
It might be your phone
though.
though. Yeah, it's with these platforms generally you want to hook and just adjust your launch so that you've got as minimal to no slip as possible.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving on. B9 SQ5 intake release. So that is in production. Our X34 carbon fiber intake is being produced currently. I think we're looking at like October-ish, something like that. So a couple more months, but it is coming. And it's a beautiful piece. Not only is it the airbox, it's a carbon fiber tube that goes to the turbo inlet pipe, and then there's a whole new fresh air duct that goes to the radiator, and it's all one kit and engineered to work. And it's not going to be real cheap, unfortunately. It's going to be a higher priced intake for us, but we had a lot of room to work with, so we made it really big. And
Yep. Somebody's asking if we're doing the turbo inlet as well. Yep, that's coming.
yes, we are doing a cast aluminum turbo inlet that will accept all hybrid turbo options
Yeah,
on the market.
that we know about. We're making it as big as we can in anticipation of whatever might be coming down the road.
Hybrid turbo supports. If that's for B9, yes, we are doing B9 S4 initially, and eventually B9 RS5.
Yep, and we're actually also
Hybrid
working on some MQB stuff coming.
MQB too, yeah. So we haven't forgot about MQB.
Nope.
We'll be actually working on that over the next few weeks.
Yep.
For the B9 platform or Audis in general, would you recommend running a higher viscosity oil with your tune? And second, would you recommend changing oil more often while running E85 due to oil dilution? I'll say on the E85 thing, I think it is a good idea to do it more often. It does seem to get into the oil worse than gasoline.
And I think it more comes down to just you're running more volume of the 85 through. So, percentage wise, you've just got a lot
It's like 20-30%
Right.
more.
You've got a lot more fuel just in the motor.
It's also really important, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, but it's really important that you drive and get your engine hot on a regular basis, say at least once a week. And if you work like 5 minutes from home, and you get up in the morning and it's cold, you get in the car and you drive 5 minutes, your motor never even gets up to temp. What's happening is, one, there's condensation lining the entire inside of your motor with water. And so this water condenses, falls into the oil, and then because you never get it up to temp, and there's a reason why manufacturers want to get your coolant up to about 220, 230 degrees. It's above the boiling point of water. Precisely, this allows this water in your oil to burn off and evaporate. It's the same thing with a lot of the byproducts of E85 that are in your oil as well. It's a lot of water and alcohol, and that stuff can dissipate and evaporate out once it gets to a higher temperature. So if you end up doing a lot of short drives, just do one and really get your motor up to temp. Go for a fun drive. If you have roads you can drive on and really get the thing hot. There's nothing wrong with getting a motor hot.
No,
it's like
it is designed
literally the
for
best thing you can do.
It will keep things clean and clear of like condensate and just a lot of other stuff that does get burned off.
Like honestly, I'd like to do a study on this someday, but I always feel like after I spend 2 days at the track with my car, on the way home, it just drives so nice. Like the motor just purrs. So motors they like getting hot. They like being under load. And, there's a lot of engineers over a lot of years who took the fact that engines are going to get hot and used really hard, and they've taken that into account. It's actually part of what keeps an engine healthy. It's honestly like exercising, for a human. Um, Speaking of which, someone's asking, will 034 be producing bicycle parts?
Speaking of which, I don't know how that translates into.
So I've really gotten into biking this year. I started out doing it just for some exercise, and that's still why I do it. But it's really fun, and I've gotten in great shape. I think I've probably never been in better shape in my whole life, except maybe that one summer I backpacked like 200 miles in the Sierra Nevadas. That was really good shape then. But yeah, then I start going on, looking at all the accessories and stuff, and it's like, oh, we could do this.
I know.
Man, why isn't anyone doing this?
Every like hobby I get into is like, oh,
I
we
know.
could just do that.
Yeah.
Why isn't anybody doing it like this? So,
But it's been fun.
it's a slippery slope.
I had an older, front suspension mountain bike, and then I got started with that, and then I started hearing about full suspension mountain bikes, and so I went out and got a really cool specialized stump jumper, like full carbon bike and everything. And then this weekend I went and bought a full carbon road bike. And so I did some road bike rides as well. It's a totally different beast. Like the road bike, you can pick it up with 2 fingers, and the stump jumper is like really light, but it's like a tank still. It's designed to crash down a mountain and go over like 6-inch rocks and stuff. So, anyways, yeah. But no, I don't think we'll be doing that. Looks like lots of people are doing that already.
Dude, yeah, getting into a market like that.
I mean, there's just so you want pedals? Everybody makes one. There's 7,000 different pedals, and they're all really cool. So, and then China's all over it too. So,
Yep.
what is the intake on the table? This is our B9S4 P34 intake. Due to popular demand, our customers requested a cheaper, more priced.
Yeah.
Still
Price sensitive.
Still really no difference in performance between this and the carbon fiber unit.
No.
There's physically, dimensionally.
Yeah, the molds are essentially identical. I mean, there's some considerations for the plastic, process, but
yeah,
there's no.
The performance is the same, and it's a silicone hose instead of a carbon fiber tube. But it's much less expensive to produce. It's not a cheap part. Very good quality. Will last for years. So this is $415. We released these last week. They've been selling really well. It's been very popular, and I believe we have them in stock, ready to ship. So, if you're on a budget, or you don't care about having carbon fiber under the hood, this is a great way to go. Gets you the performance, the power, the sound, and you can put that money towards other stuff. With the difference in price, you could buy our sway bar or various other components, or put that money towards our tune, which is awesome. All right. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about it specifically, but it has our big 5-inch filter. This intake will easily support any power from any of the turbos that are currently on the market, including hybrids. Very, very free-flowing intake.
Yeah.
The B8 3.0T Q5 SQ5 Insuction Bundle ETA.
We're just waiting on the hose on that one.
Insuction bundle for.
I'm assuming that's the throttle body.
We have to design for the SüperDüper charger. We have to design the hose, which engineering was working on last week. We don't have an ETA, but it's probably going to be later this year or something like that. Actually, I mean the hoses are pretty quick to produce.
They're pretty quick, yeah.
Yeah, so
might be able to.
But let's say 3 to 4 months or so. And then, of course, we need to release the intake for that as well. So that intake is coming.
Yes.
Our X34 B8 SQ5 intake and B8.5. Why does Audi recommend a 10,000 mile interval for oil changes? Oh, wait, hold on. We forgot to answer the viscosity question from whoever asked that.
Okay.
So when it comes to viscosity, I would stick with certainly for any like B9 where you're running, it's a factory engine and you're running our tuning and some other stuff. Even if you have a hybrid, I would still stick with the factory oil recommendations. The only time you're going to want to start thinking about changing the viscosity is if you build a motor and you change the tolerances inside the motor. So this is a over time, what we've seen is that newer engines run lower viscosity oils. A lot of that is because engines are built and produced with tighter tolerances now than they used to be. So when you have really tight tolerances, you don't need a very viscous oil because the passages that the oil needs to go into are very small, and so that there's a certain viscosity that allows the oil to propagate and be all in the right places and create the right type of oil film that the engine was designed for. Now, let's say this isn't happening, but someday maybe someone will take their B9 3.0T out and put G pistons in it and forged rods, and they'll open up the bearing clearances, and the forged pistons, G forged pistons, have a higher thermal expansion coefficient, so there's going to be like more slop in that piston, and you open up the bearing clearances because you're going to be getting that motor really hot, putting it under heavy load. So as things expand, you're going to leave some extra room for that expansion. In that case, you're going to want to step up, and typically you're going to want to run like a 2050 synthetic oil or something because of those looser tolerances that you would typically build into a aftermarket racing motor. So all that to say, if you're still on a stock engine and I know
Stage 1, Stage 2 power.
Stage 1, Stage 2, even Stage 3, you can start playing with different viscosities and nothing terrible will probably happen, but you really don't know what's going to happen. Right. And if you end up putting too thick or too viscous of an oil, or an oil that the viscosity curve with temperature isn't what the engine was designed for, then you could end up sacrificing and actually making your lubrication of your engine worse. Mm-hmm. In your attempt to make it better, you could make it worse.
Yeah. And there are a lot of different oils out there that, in a given viscosity range, that have different traits, characteristics, temperature handling, additives. So you don't necessarily have to change viscosity to get some other characteristic of the oil you might be looking for.
Yeah. Oh, can one of you guys run over to Mark's toolbox and grab the DAZA intake, the inlet? Yeah, and then you could also take into consideration where you live and what your climate is. So if you live, I know the North Pole's not as cold as it used to be, but if you live in the North Pole and it's always minus 50 degrees, then you're not going to run the oil that Audi recommends for most of the world. And then conversely, if you live on the equator and it's 115 degrees every day, you could also run a right. thicker, more viscous oil, So, but these are,
and I haven't looked through a recent owner's manual. They used to list different oils by region and average temperature,
and also like time of the year and stuff. Yeah, the seasonality.
I don't know if they do that anymore, but I know that was normal.
Newer synthetic oils and all the additives, they're very good. So it's less common.
Yeah, and it used to be like 30 weight oiler. You didn't have the range and the technical formulations that they have now.
Yeah. Pros and cons of running a fluidamper on a Gen3 MQB. This is I don't know if this is controversial, but I think it's a little bit. Fluidamper has a technology where basically there's a chamber with a metal slug inside a viscous fluid, and so as the crank pulley spins, this metal slug floats around in the oil, and the theory is that it moves in a way that dampens crankshaft vibrations, which is one thing. But then they take it a step further and say that this actually increases horsepower. The job of a harmonic damper is to cancel out or dampen resonances in the crankshaft. So every engine, every mechanical thing in the universe has a resonant frequency where it vibrates resonates at a higher amplitude at one frequency than it does any other frequency. At some frequencies it doesn't resonate at all. But typically, as you come up on the resonant frequency from each side, you get a huge surge of energy inside the assembly. And this is based on its weight and mass and stiffness and all the acoustic properties that everything has. This table has a resonant frequency. This is different.
That might not actually come up because we're AIing the crap out of
Yeah, yeah. Resonant frequency. So, and typically when you knock on something, that's what you're hearing is this resonant frequency. So the crankshaft at a certain RPM begins to resonate and flex. And this is the result of the weight of the pistons and the rods and the speed and the length of the crankshaft and all this stuff. So you put this kind of rubbery dampening type thing, which would be kind of like putting your finger on the key of a xylophone, and it dampens it. So the fluid damper says that their way is better than all the other ways, and then they say that because the crankshaft doesn't resonate, that it actually spins more efficiently and you produce more power. I think the whole power producing thing is possibly BS. Now there's some companies out there that do before and afters with the fluid damper, and I think those kind of tests are highly suspicious. I mean, just based on temperature or whatever, you could easily get an extra 5 horsepower from one run to the next. In fact, it's within the margin of error of typical dyno pole, and then you can conveniently choose which runs you compare, and all of a sudden it looks like you're making more power. So I'd be skeptical of that. We sell them.
Yeah, they're a good.
It's a good crank damper. Right. I just don't know if it makes a lot of power, and I don't
certainly
know
if you've got compromised or aged or failing stock dampers, they're good dampers. There's no quality issues there at all. But we
ran them on Attack A4.
We ran them a lot. They're a great aftermarket performance damper. We have not been able to measure any.
No, we've never
any performance where I guess you could take that to another level where those vibrations are going somewhere into oils or bearings or whatever. Reduce engine temperatures in theory you should get if you're reducing the vibrations, but we haven't at a performance level been able to isolate that damper.
Well, then there's a third factor that says that if you don't dampen the crankshaft properly, that it's going to fail, or you'll have reliability problems. You will wear out your bearings, or bad things will happen. And so we also haven't really seen that. I've been tuning and building engines for 30 years, and I've put solid aluminum crank pulleys on just about everything, and I've never seen an instance where there was any type of failure associated with that. There's a very famous video of Steve Dinan. I think it's either a video or an article he wrote talking about this. And in practice, yes.
If you take everything to the engineering extreme and the mathematical extreme or physical extreme,
theoretically you can do that. Now,
extremes,
this article or video, there's no data posted, or nothing, like no conclusive tests. Like, he didn't measure the amount of crankshaft deflection or the amount of energy that was excessive energy, or the extra load or stress on the bearings that were. I've never seen anything like that. But the factory, they put these harmonic dampers on everything, presumably for a reason. But I mean, take 3.0 TB8 specifically. There's been solid aluminum pulleys on the market for 6-7 years, and other than some of the crappier ones failing,
the pulley itself,
or I've seen them when they haven't been installed properly and the bolts shear. But we've had no reports. I mean, we've sold thousands of those.
And market, I mean, worldwide, you can only imagine how many are out there on motors.
Hundreds of thousands of cars worldwide running these with millions and millions, millions of miles.
You would see like failed crankshafts or bearings or something if that was a chronic thing.
So all that to say, if you want a nice crank pulley, fluid damper is a good choice.
Yep.
Just be skeptical of some of the claims.
But
it's a good quality product.
It may be that in some markets, in some engines, they're really fixing a problem that the factory damper doesn't account for. We just haven't seen that on any of the VAG stuff we've ever tested.
Yeah, in other applications.
Right. Completely other numbers.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, they make a few pulleys for Volkswagen, Audi, but 99. I mean, they do military stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of applications where it might actually do a huge.
They actually the company that owns fluidamper, they emailed me once their entire accounts receivable
Whoops.
report
That probably wasn't supposed
of
to go to
all
you.
the customers that owed them money. And it was crazy. There was like all these big military contractors and stuff on there, and there were companies that owed them millions of dollars. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's a lot more pulleys than probably
Yeah.
what.
So I think the
Sorry,
aftermarket stuff they do is probably an afterthought compared to all that. They were doing stuff for Caterpillar, like
I believe
really cool
it.
stuff. This was like 10 years ago, so I don't mind talking about it. Any update on the turbo inlet for DAZA? Yes. Here it is. This is a pre-production sample, so all the tooling and molds have been created, and this and another piece we received are the first 2 units off that tooling, and so we are for the most part approving this. There was some issues with the surface finish, and these parts are kind of banged up, and so it's typically pretty common that when you get pre-production samples, they're not exactly what you're gonna get because they're typically manually made.
It's more of a
normal
hand
process.
hand moved process.
They're not on the actual production line, but this fits, and it's the part, and I think we should be able to have this out to market in then maybe 2 months or so.
Yeah, but to get inventory in. And
Yeah,
set up.
get all the parts made, but we will give them the go ahead to get moving. And again, we will be releasing these at an extremely good price. We will have inserts for all major hybrid options on the market. And again, this will be a market busting price for, frankly, a premium quality product with no compromises.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're in the market for a DAZA, hang in there a little longer. We'll have these out, and I think you guys will really love them. B9.5 3.8T support. I bought a tune and was told support would be coming out very soon, and that's still true.
Yeah, I mean, we are
How
working
are you
on it
guys?
as quickly as possible.
Any current? The initial month has kind of come and gone.
Yeah. I mean, we are getting a vehicle in. I think we're going to be doing some more validation in the next couple weeks, for certain. So yeah, we'll have much firmer ETAs after that.
Yeah, I mean, some of the time that we were going to use for that got put towards further refining the initial tune, which anyone with a B9.5
there's that.
will benefit from.
And then just getting the server side ready. It's a completely different processor, so that's we're
Being able to flash.
We're deep into that, and that's going well. So there's a couple of different things we're having to tackle, and it's taking a little bit longer. But we've got all the files set up, ready to build out. So now it's just a matter of getting the calibrations finalized and up on the server.
Oh, look, an ETA question I'd love to answer.
Oh boy.
Will we ever get 4.0 T
I saw that
mounts?
one come in.
Okay, that was a little passive aggressive, bro.
Yeah.
But we can look past that, and I'll say that the endurance and testing is complete, and we have inspected mounts that have been installed and tortured, and everything looked great. So
we could have gotten you some mounts that didn't meet those standards way earlier, but
he wouldn't have wanted those, obviously. But
it's not a small job to go in there. So.
But they are coming, and I think we're probably 3 or 4 months out on those now. That's we'll get production started.
Yep.
So good news, they are coming, and they've survived our testing standards. After a couple revisions, we're finally where we want to be. So thank you for your patience.
Somebody else literally just asked that question too. I mean,
yeah.
And this is one of the things,
we can ask
it's tricky. We could just not say anything about those products until they're ready for release, but we're letting in early that we're working on this stuff.
No, we're happy to. And we deal with some pushback and grumpiness, but it's worth it because I think majority of people who get these ETAs enjoy them and appreciate them and understand, what we're saying.
Trust me, we want to get this to you guys as quick as possible.
Yeah. Someone was asking, where's that spring question? Did that disappear? Oh, do you guys plan on releasing any adjustable height springs? We don't plan on it. We sell so many of our fixed height springs, and We have such great results. Our customers love them. They're easy to install.
Yeah, we have a really early on. We did a really
They're cheap.
long talk about adjustable springs and some of the caveats to that. Getting them set
Yeah,
up
well, that one's
properly.
especially adjustable suspensions.
More, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. The more knobs you have to adjust, it is exponentially more difficult to get things set up properly.
I mean, adjustable springs are nice because you can dial in your ride height, but you go from like a $300 spring to an $800 spring, and again, we have such good results with our fixed height springs. So that's, I think we're gonna keep focusing on that because things start getting a lot more complicated and expensive. When can we expect E85 support for the B8 3.0T?
Fully 85. I mean, that's going to depend on obviously more hardware that's coming down the line. Nothing is ready for retail that I've seen yet. So once that's something we can get a hold of, we're going to have to then do the calibration work for it. And the way we're going to be doing that is a far more integrated solution than everything else I've heard of. So
Yeah.
There's going to be some time to do it and do it right. As far as ultimate power gains and output, as we've said before, it's gonna be marginal. It's going to be marginal. E40 is pretty much all the way there.
You're pretty much getting the main benefit.
There's been some numbers flying around with some of these kits, but without any good before and afters and isolated testing, which is quite difficult to do. Especially where you're like, potentially developing a tune and then just flipping around between octanes and things without really narrowing down the variables. So, we haven't seen a huge amount of power going to E85. What I foresee is that it's going to give you some, what we're trying to do is roll in more of a flex fuel element to it, where you can put whatever you have available to you in the tank and run it, which makes, cross country trips or whatever a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as ETA, yes, so we'll support it. It's just we're waiting for the hardware to come down the line.
And don't forget, we did release our B8 A4 Stage 1 tune last week.
Yeah, we got a couple of dealers were posting that some results they were getting.
Okay,
so
good.
It's pretty substantial. We had, one dealer posted up that he went from a 15.1 something or other quarter mile to a 13.4. 13.4.
Jam in
Yeah.
On what fuel?
He was running like E75, I think he said.
Oh, really? Okay. So here, Nick Scambaluri, our calibrator who worked on this tune, great job, Nick. He was able to run a 13.06 at 102.2 miles an hour, and that was with E85 in the tank in our in-house A5.
It's a stage 1 file.
Yeah, and that car has like 275s on it, so it's
true.
got a
That's
lot of
probably big tires on it too.
Yeah.
It was the development ZF8 thing, but
Yeah, but even that, Sean was just saying it was on our development ZF8 tune, but that was with all the stock shift points still. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was
shouldn't change
a
much.
little bit of different launch, but other than that, pretty similar. A little faster shifting,
But yeah, I mean, completely transforms the car. And here's the main thing is you can run, we're allowing, I think, I don't know if it's the first time or...
well, and people we keep getting asked,
E85.
how are you able to run E85? And it's it's in the,
you put an 85 in the gas tank, and then you flash our file, and then you can run 85.
yeah. I mean,
That's how you
Nick,
can do
Nick
it.
spent a bunch of time on it. We went back and forth.
I mean, it's just hilarious how this... So there's some idea out there that because B8.5s were E85 compatible, that B8s aren't. But look at all the other, like, B8S4s are not E85 compatible from the factory, and everybody runs
Nor
E85.
are DAZAs, nor are
DAZAs, same thing.
MQBs.
So it's interesting how these like false narratives get created and then propagated, and then they become like conventional wisdom in these little communities.
I mean, E85 tuning is relatively recent in popularity. As more of it becomes available across the nation. So the B8's
in the last 10 years.
Yeah, but the B8's an older platform at this point. So as those were first coming out, E85 wasn't necessarily there 10 years ago for widespread use. So there wasn't a lot of time put in.
I heard that was something that APR initially started propagating. They basically said,
yeah, no, I wouldn't
because
be surprised,
everybody was like, can we get E85? And they were like, no, it's not compatible, which is false.
Yeah.
But they kind of put that out there, and then everyone ran with it. And APR also said that B9 A4s don't make any more power with high flow cats, which is totally false as
Right.
well. But I guess they didn't want to produce a high flow cat, so they said, I don't know why they said that.
Right.
but-
So, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of time spent on it, and
Yeah.
getting the calibration right and all the fueling considerations,
Yeah.
dialed in for, the E85 requirements.
But factory fuel systems, I mean, certainly modern ones, use corrosion resistance.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not even
components
talking from
all throughout
a,
that. I think that's what a lot of people.
I think, a lot of people might be hung up on that, but
Yeah.
it is difficult to do it,
Oh,
correctly
sure.
on the calibration side,
Yeah.
and that's where we spend a lot of time getting that.
Well, and that's another
Yeah.
reason why a tuner might say it's not possible.
Yeah.
because they don't know how to or don't want to do.
They
it.
don't want to spend the time. To do
Yeah.
it.
But so that's really cool. You can just fill your tank up with the 85 and go. And yes, we are doing a KO4 tune for
Yeah, that was
that
another
application
question.
as
Yeah.
well. There is a myriad of horrible B8 A4 KO4 tunes out there.
Yes.
We used to install the big one that you may have heard of, and in one particular test we did, it made less power than the stage 1 tune.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we will be working on that this year and bringing that
Yeah,
to
and
market,
it's
as well as
exciting.
the stage 2.
It's pretty exciting. I mean, our stage 1 times are right there with some of the fastest.
Yeah.
Stage 2 pretty strong out cars, and this is like literally a full weight as no mods, just a flash.
4,000 pounds
like
today.
stock intake, stock intercooler. I mean,
Yeah.
minimal mods on that car, and he's running a 13 out.
Will you be producing engine dress-up parts similar to racing line? I would love some 034 Motorsport parts like gas caps. We're looking into it. All these things take time, and so that we haven't currently felt like prioritizing dress-up parts over some of the more substantive performance products that we're working on. But they are in our concept queue, and in many of those cases too, we can work with Racing Line, who we partner with, to bring some of that stuff. So if I could snap my fingers and have some of those dress up parts, I would. It just we have to make choices, and so currently at this time, I wouldn't give an ETA on anything yet, but not to say that it won't ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
Will there be an E85 tune for the E888 Gen3?
So like MQB motor. Yes.
MQB, yeah.
Yep. We're going to be doing ethanol blends, and we'll have a fully 85 set up as well with port fueling and whatnot for those.
Yeah.
Yep. That's coming.
Any updates on the gain numbers from your super suction kits
Super
on the
sucker.
3.0T using your
I see super suckers. I pitched that
a
one.
super suction? That's very similar to super soaker. I think we might have a.
I did.
Some
Yeah,
trademarking
there
issues
were
there.
some.
But the super sucker kit. Yes,
Yes,
we have numbers.
they are
We
done.
finally got them last week.
Yep. Nick just wrapped those up literally minutes before I walked in here.
No.
Yeah. So Sean's saying you got an email. So you'll see those probably on the site later today. But yes, we have numbers. It's right what we were telling you. I think we're right around 10.
1 million horsepower.
Yes,
more.
10 million. It's what we measured back to back, same day.
Not a million.
Same day swap. We were getting around 10 wheel, and we're posting all the data we saw. With the pressure drop before the supercharger, the boost pressure after the supercharger, and then the power difference we saw. So you can kind of see how it all works. More air into the supercharger gets you a little more boost, gets you a little more power. So, yep.
Will you be making a meth file for B9?
A meth file
if
for
we-
9 through. We haven't
Try not to promote drug use here.
Yeah, no.
034 Motorsport.
It depends. I mean, we haven't had any requests for it. It's one of those things. If it becomes super popular and there's a need for it, maybe, but not at the moment.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. I mean, adding meth essentially gives you more octane.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's outside of the ECU control, so we don't like doing calibrations that require things that we don't have control of.
Yeah, and calibrations for things that can run out.
Yeah, it's very common
Like
for a
other
meth
than
system
fuel.
for a meth system to stop working for a myriad of reasons.
At least if you run out of fuel, the motor shuts off, and then you can't.
Right.
Nothing can happen. But if one system shuts off and the others keep going, then
Yep, and it's
who knows?
It's tough because even in all the kits that are out there, a well executed meth injection system is not common.
No.
There's the cylinder balancing, the injection methods and whatnot are very hard to get right.
I think there's also just an overall lack of confirmation that it's actually a good thing to do. I think a lot of people just believe or have been told that you got to run meth and it's great, but I just haven't seen a lot of really conclusive testing that shows that it's worth it.
You know, I've run it back to back on our B8 here.
We've never been able to
pile of different injection options,
Yeah.
You know, flow amounts and whatnot, and just to really find a bunch of power with it, it just wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. It might help with some, you know, limited octane fuels, but if you've got good fuel in the motor, you know, running like the E40 file, there wasn't a lot to that.
Yeah.
It you know, might help a little bit on the cooling, but the supercharger gets interesting because it actually seals the rotors better, so you get more boost, which makes more heat.
Yeah.
Which was then you had to cool, you know, for that further to actually
higher pressure ratio.
Yeah, it was tricky.
In regards to SüperDüper, whatever happened to you guys using a ported blower as well for gains, changes in airflow? I mean, we're still doing that.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Yeah, what the actual question?
I think we were talking at one point about actually doing before and afters
on just a ported blower,
isolating that one very well.
Yeah, and that's another one. We might do more of that down to again,
and then possibly making a file specific for that. But we haven't found
all of the testing that we've done in house, even last week with a ported blower. No need for a custom file on it.
Yeah. By the way, did you ever hear about a customer wanted to relay his happiness about 034 Motorsport? And so he wrote this entire analogy about how 034 Motorsport products are like MILFs. And he drew all these like incredible correlations back and forth between great performance parts and MILFs.
That wasn't the president of 034? That was a customer?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love MILFs. But, no, this was a customer.
I can't say as
I was just like, this is the most brilliant feedback we've ever received. I mean, this really hits home. Like,
I feel like this is
you want to understand how good of a job we're doing?
Nick Mercadante style imposition of an SQ5 customer.
I think we need to do like
okay.
It was an RS3, even better. I think we need to take like a page out in like the New York Times and just post what he wrote. Just say this is the way you tell a company they're doing a good job. As you say, they're like a MILF in all these different ways. It's brilliant, yeah. Like a breath of like invigorating feedback, you know, to just keep charging forward. E40 or E85 support for CREC. This one's not going away.
No, it's not, and it is coming. This is another one where we're beholden to some flashing. You know, hurdles. It's in our list. It's one of those things, unfortunately, that isn't the you know, highest priority of all of the other, you know, things we're tackling right now for the flashing side. So it is coming.
You have said it is being worked on.
It is being worked on. Yeah.
When there's time.
You know, it's yeah. We've got all the technology to do it, aside from getting it actually loaded up right now. It's in the queue.
Yeah. Talk about something real quick. I'm trying to find this. Oh, okay, never mind. All right, so I wanted to throw this out there. I was invited onto a podcast last week called the Overcrest Podcast. Their slogan for the Overcrest Podcast is "It's a pretty good podcast." So I mean, if that doesn't draw you in, I don't know what will. But
sounds pretty good.
But Chris over at Overcrest Podcast invited me to come on to talk about some of the new BAR testing procedures and some of the fervor and angst over, you know, what it means for enthusiasts. And so if you'd like, go check them out, overcrestproductions.com. And I believe the podcast is last week's, and it's like called, if my internet would ever work. It should be from last week's, and it's coming up here. But it's talking about is California screwing up the tuning performance market, and I feel like I was able to go on and give a kind of level-headed, logical, sane
There's a lot
perspective.
of hysteria.
There are a lot of people freaking out and kind of overreading into this. And some people think like the EPA is passing its own laws, and that's not true. This goes back to the law, which is the Clean Air Act. And the EPA's job is to enforce the Clean Air Act. That's what what Congress told.
Is California really the villain?
Yeah, is California really the villain? But overcrestproductions.com. In fact, Sean, if you want to just post a link to it in some of the feeds. I didn't want to like post it too publicly for various reasons, but it was good. I think I was on for about a half an hour, and I also talk about some of the history of 034 Motorsport and a little bit about what we do and why how this would affect us and stuff. But TLDR, like, good news is it doesn't affect what we do too much, if anything, and you guys can still flash and tune your cars, and it's not a big deal yet. I mean, there could be more stuff coming. This could actually get stopped too, just like all these things. There's probably, I haven't heard of any, but I'm sure there's some lawsuits gearing up for this, and so
yeah, it's such a weird.
But anyways, it's not the end of the
weird
world.
thing to enforce.
We're not
because
shutting down or
there's,
anything.
There's so much, like, they're isolating some of these calibration verification numbers or some of these other things where they have no idea what's really changed, if anything, inside that can affect any emissions equipment. So it's kind of a blanket dismissal for stuff that may have zero effect on emissions.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one to justify.
It's the same thing. Like, you can drive around with no intake on your car. It doesn't affect your emissions at all, but that wouldn't be legal.
Right. Right.
So even us, we're going through this carbon approval process for our intakes, and it's pretty dumb, but it's completely bureaucratic. Now, on the ECU calibration side, yes, and if you take your cat
you certainly
off,
can.
if you change your cat, then emissions are out the door.
Yeah.
So.
And we were talking last week some more with CARB and some of their agencies on how this, we're going to have CARB authorized tunes and how it's going to work. Moving forward, and as we're planning already, there's going to be a decal and a specific part numbered file, and some other stuff you're going to have to run
the NEO on it.
Yep, with our EO number. So there's going to be support for aftermarket calibrations through all this still.
Does your stage 2 tune for B9 3.0T turn the check engine light off for a catless downpipe? So yes, in racing applications where you're using our stage 2 tune, we basically say that the O2 sensor is not installed. So
no, it's more the catalyst test itself.
The catalyst test.
The sensors all need to be there, and everything is still valid there. But
so you put your factory sensor, even if you have a high flow cat, you still install
still need it.
Just like
Yep.
But then the ECU doesn't get upset if the readings aren't what they're supposed to be because it's for racing.
And on that, we want the check engine light to mean something.
Yeah.
So if there is a fault, it. So it's one of those things we feel is important to maintain, function too, where it's not just.
And it still functions on every other.
Still functions.
Yes.
Yep. This is literally for a racing application where you would expect to not have to, worry about that component.
Why do you use a 5-inch filter for your P34X34 intake? We had room for it.
Why not?
And it's a nice big inlet. The size of the opening in the air filter can have a lot to do with how well it flows. Now, granted, a 3-inch tube still flows a tremendous amount of air, but once you add the restriction of the filter elements, then it helps to make the inlet bigger, which is why virtually all of our intakes are at least 4 inches up to 5 inches. There was really no benefit going bigger than that, but yeah, generally if you can have a nice big inlet. Now we're obviously necking down to a smaller diameter, but you have to keep in mind a 5-inch air filter is going to have a lot more challenges to flowing as a 3-inch tube, which has nothing inside it, right? So as you make the component bigger, if there are flow restrictions in that component, then it helps to make it bigger, which is precisely why bigger throttle bodies flow better. Why you might want a 84 millimeter throttle body going into a 3-inch pipe, because the 84 millimeter throttle body has a butterfly inside it and a shaft, and all those things disrupt the flow. So by making the size of the restricted component bigger, then you can offset a lot of the fact that there's stuff in the way, right? Trying to think of an example, but if you're at Costco and there's like 8 different people just standing in the aisle, and then if you could make the aisle twice as wide, then you have more room to go down the aisle. And that's been my experience. Is I go to Costco and there's just people standing around in the aisles, completely oblivious to anyone else existing in the universe.
I don't know what it's like to walk around the world where your
Yeah.
existence like ends in like the reach of your
The
arms.
problem is, if you just made the aisle twice as wide, there would then be 16 people standing.
Yes. Yeah. The human race is not
Yes.
so inclined to just allow for more
Yeah.
space.
But with the case of an air filter, you make it 5 inches, and like random people just don't come and stand in the opening, so it actually flows more.
Oh, hold on.
It's a great.
Speaking of, would my CTS turbo intake fit with the new throttle body upgrade for the B8 Alpha?
No CTS. It will fit in the trash.
That intake is by far the worst flowing thing we have ever flown.
It's so bad.
It is terrible.
It's like a cheap Chinese
like-
filter, something. I don't know.
It's
like an
just-
eBay
it's
filter.
awful.
Yeah. No, you should throw that
you
away.
should never pair that with anything.
It's funny because people buy it thinking it's for performance. But it's the opposite.
It's wretched. It is one of the worst filter elements we've ever seen. And then if you think you're gonna get power then by putting a bigger throttle body behind it, it's your restriction is further ahead than the throttle body there.
Yeah. It's like going to the club to pick up some girls and then just getting kicked in the
So,
nuts.
copy that. Okay. Right. I guess.
Like
that's
as
it.
you
I guess
walk in
that's
the
an
door,
analogy.
someone just kicks you in the nuts, and then you just are like crying on the floor.
kind of forget about the
You
girls
get
at that point.
no chicks, right?
Too low.
That's the no milfs. Milfs definitely not. But that's like what happens.
you're
That's like
clubbing
basically
milfs.
like buying the CTS intake. It's like getting kicked in the nuts. All right. There was a good question about where are we focusing on.
Yeah, I don't know why somebody deleted that.
What happened?
Savages.
Someone.
But yeah, somebody was asking
What platform is getting the most of our attention? There's no simple answer because we are working on so many different things. So I would say, off the top of my head, B9, including SQ5 variants, B8, including SQ5 variants. Mark 7 is still a big focus. We're still doing quite a bit with DAZA.
C7. We're doing more and more of that.
So, yeah, we're working on C7, but I think between B8, B9, and MQB, that's probably
those are the big hitters,
80% of our engineering effort, and then certainly the focuses are a little different between tuning, calibration engineering, and hardware engineering. But you probably notice we will come out with we just have a really broad scope of new product focus, and we don't always just release a bunch of the same thing. So we're very well diversified, but if you go into any of the particular applications, like on our website, you'll see that we go deeper and broader than just about any other tuner in the world, and then we do it across a myriad of applications. So I would say that 034 Motorsport is a company that has probably the broadest, most complete product line for all the various applications it supports than just about any other tuning company in the world. All right, we have a few more minutes, 2 minutes. B8. Oh,
that was it.
Okay.
For B7.
I'm scared of getting rid of my warranty. How reliable are these tunes? Great question. They're very reliable. You may have maybe you've seen the section we did on our focus on safety. We've actually done a number of them. Maybe Sean, you guys could link to some of the B9 tech insights. But yes, I mean, I don't think I've had a new factory warranty on any Audi I've owned and ever, because we buy cars and we void the warranty almost immediately.
Pretty much within an hour or two of it.
Other than the S3 blowing its turbo, which was a known issue
Bone stock.
from Audi, it was thankfully it happened bone stock, because we weren't able to tune the ECU at that point.
Yeah, it was like within
it
pretty
was
short
like
time
6
of
months.
us having a car. Yeah,
we were doing all the hardware and chassis development. But the thing is, a dealer can't just void your warranty without any kind of cause. Remember, warranties are a consumer protection device, and so if if there's a known issue or problem with your car from Audi, they cannot just void the warranty because you did some random thing, right? So they have to be able to, and you're gonna have to fight for it if something happens, but they have to be able to prove that the modification you made caused the failure. Now, I can confidently say that none of our products will cause any factory warranty failures. And so you can safely modify your car with any of our products and services, including our tunes, and not have to stress about it.
Yeah.
And chances are, if you have a problem, lots of other people have had a problem. For example, the MQB turbo issues, all the turbos were breaking because IHI made it the shaft too small, or the nut stud feature where the compressor wheel attaches. It would just break right off. So, anyways, I think we're out of time.
We're out of time. So
Thank you for joining us once again, and see you next week, probably at the same.
I'm off next week, so we'll
Oh,
figure
I think
that
I
out.
am too. Yeah,
So yeah, it might be you might have a week gap with us.
yeah, or maybe we could do later in the week or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Figure
But
something out.
thanks, guys.
All right, guys.